started. Let's have our panelists introduce themselves. So we'll just start off with, if we can just go round robin. Ignore, if you could start us off.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ignor Kaur. I'm a fourth year CS major. I will be graduating this spring, so just in a few weeks here, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ayush. Good to see all of you here. I'm currently a third year CS major, and I'm also an international student.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Mariela Hernandez. I'm a senior graduating as well, double majoring in cognitive science and computer science. And I will also be the moderator for today. So thank you for joining us.
Hello, my name is Jason. I'm a fourth year CS major. I'm going to graduate this fall. Yeah.
And I'm Ashley. I'm a third year EECS major, and feel free to ask me anything.
Great, thank you all. So just to go over the structure of today's presentation, we have some predetermined questions already, and we'll also take audience questions. So please feel free to send your questions into the chat, and we'll try to get to those questions at the end of our presentation here. So I'm going to turn over the panel to Mariela to lead us. Let me go to question 1 here.
Cool. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and get started. Like Gina mentioned, I'll just be asking the questions and then we'll be doing a round robin style. So question 1, why did you choose Berkeley and what was it like to make the transition to Berkeley? Ayush, would you like to be the first one to go?
Yeah, sure. So I came from a high school where CS was not necessarily that popular. Not too many people were interested in studying it. So I wanted to go to a school where it was basically the opposite of that. So I wanted to come to a school where CS was really popular in the culture. And Berkeley is a school that is true for. And a big part of it, being an international student as well. I'm originally from Bangkok, Thailand. So a big part of my move was weather and location. So being in the West Coast, in the Bay Area, I felt that that wouldn't be too shocking for me in terms of weather. So that was also another factor. Yeah.
Nice. Ashley, do you want to share?
Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons why I chose Berkeley. So I'm an East Bay local, so Berkeley is pretty close to home for me. So I actually used to commute to campus every day. So if you have questions, actually, you can ask me about that. And also, so I'm interested in doing software engineering full-time, and Berkeley is like really close to like San Francisco, Oakland, Silicon Valley. So there's a lot of companies really nearby to like kind of connect with. And you can see this also reflecting career fairs. Like there's a lot of companies that come to Berkeley to recruit. So those are like probably the main reasons why I came to Berkeley.
Awesome. Jason, how about you go next?
Sure. So I'm actually what's called a returning student. So I am actually 33 years old. I'm pretty old than most of my peers. But I was basically like floating around for about 9 years. I didn't do really too well in high school. Like probably like the highest math I got was like pre-algebra. And I tried going to community college right after high school, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So, you know, I was just floating around for 9 years. Decided to come back 2015. Was in community college for like 4 years. And I basically told myself that, you know, I want to do better. I feel like I can do better. I know I have a lot of potential. And I was like, well, why not get into one of the toughest schools to get into? And so that's one of the reasons. The other reason was the CS curriculum, I think, is just amazing. And after experiencing it for about 2+ years, or 2.5 years, or gonna be 2.5 years, I'd say it is. And, you know, compared to other universities, I thought that the curriculum was a little ancient, not really kind of industry standard, you could say, like not really kind of using really up-to-date concepts. Not to hate on other schools, but I just thought, you know, just looking at course websites was really interesting. So I'd say those two things definitely made me want to come here.
Awesome. And Ignor, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so I'm a transfer student. So I did 1 year at community college straight out of high school. And then I transferred to Berkeley. And for me, similar to Ashley, I'm like an East Bay native. I'm from Pleasanton, if anyone knows where that is. So to me, it was like family's always been a really big part of my life. So it was important for me to be able to travel home and see my grandparents like on the weekends and stuff like that. And my older brother also goes to Berkeley and studies CS. So that was just kind of fun to, like study with him. And then I think the biggest thing that kind of pushed me towards Berkeley is just kind of the culture. A lot of people say it's like very stressful and very competitive. But I think in a sense that's also very good because you're able to meet like peers who are just so determined and so motivated to like do amazing things, and I think just constantly being around those types of people has really pushed me to be like the best version of myself and to really strive to like, like if I want to make my own company to like go out there and do it. And I think that was something that I really wanted, and I have definitely like gotten the chance to experience while being here.
Awesome. I'll share a little bit about myself. So when I was a senior in high school, I actually wasn't sure where to go. Funny enough, my brother also went to Berkeley, but he was about like 6 years older than me. So even though he had done Berkeley, we weren't very close. We just didn't talk a lot. He was doing his own thing. And so he's first gen, I'm first gen. Both of our parents didn't go to college, and I didn't really know what to do. I had gotten into other UCs like in SoCal or Southern California, but I was a little too scared to move really far away from home. And so my thought was like, well, I don't really know what college is like. And my brother went to Berkeley and people seem to be talking really well about it. So I'll go there because at least I'll have him to kind of guide me or like tell me what I should and shouldn't do. And it was a kind of a strange epiphany because I was like, well, I don't really know what to do here. And I'm not exactly sure like what to study. But like he studied computer science and I have no idea what that is, but maybe I'll like look into other things. I was really into theater my senior year of high school. So I was just kind of like, yeah, I guess I'll figure it out when I'm there. And on a whim, I kind of decided it just because it was only 2 hours away from home and because I had my brother. And so I'm from Salinas, which isn't as close to like what people consider Bay Area, but 2 hours being from home didn't feel like the biggest change and still, I guess, a sufficient change to move away from what I was used to. So that's question 1 from all of us. Now we will move on to question 2, which is, what do you enjoy most about studying at Berkeley and what is the most challenging? So we'll just go ahead with you, Ayush.
Yeah, so what I enjoy and what I find the most challenging happen to be the same thing, which is how Berkeley forces you to think. And what I mean by that is it forces you to question things and not take things in face value. And you get to basically, when you're taught content, it's not just about like learning how to code, it's about learning how that code stands in a context of other things. And you get to sort of see, I guess, big picture ideas. And that's what I mean by it forces you to think. And another part of that is you're being pushed to the point where, well, you're being pushed in the sense that it brings the best out of you because like success doesn't come easy. So in this way, all of your courses will ask you the challenging questions and prepare you to a certain extent that will help you basically go on past Berkeley in industry or in research, and you'll be experiencing a lot of the problems that will seem a little bit more familiar now because of what Berkeley has done to push you towards that. So it's really challenging to cope with all that, but it's also super fun because it's more than just like learning the content. It's about learning how the content affects you and how you're going to be affecting the content. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Ashley, let's continue with you.
Yeah. So I think what I like most about studying at Berkeley is like studying with like all the other people, because like everyone who comes to Berkeley, like everyone's just like so brilliant. And so you get to study with all these like really like incredibly brilliant people. It's like, wow, like you guys are so cool. So just being a part of that whole community and like learning from each other, and it's really rewarding to like go into office hours and like talk to other people and learn from them too. And so the most challenging thing is also the most rewarding thing, which I think is like the sheer amount of opportunities that Berkeley gives you. So like it doesn't matter what you want to do. There's going to be something for you at Berkeley. Like if you want to do research, like there's so many research opportunities. If you're interested in working, then there's a lot of career fairs you can go to. There's so many clubs that you can join. And so like you kind of have to like manage yourself. But so the challenge comes in trying to balance all those things and trying to like pursue what you want to do that you like, and also like managing classes at the same time. But then like doing all those things is also like super rewarding.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear. Jason, we'd love to hear from you.
So the thing I enjoy most is that I'm never bored. Like sometimes I felt like at community college, you just don't feel that challenged, or it just kind of seems like you're repeating a pattern and you're not, you just kind of turn off your brain and just write stuff down. But I feel like here there's never a dull moment. I'm always being challenged. Every homework assignment, every lab, every project, like exams, like it can be extremely stressful, but it's also just, it's never boring. And I'm kind of echoing what Ayush is saying, which is that a lot of the courses and a lot of the professors and TAs, they all want to force you to think, as opposed to just pattern matching where, your brain is turned off and you're not really like thinking about concepts, or you're not thinking about how well you understand something. So that's the thing I enjoy the most. And that's also the most challenging, because it is, I have to admit, it is pretty stressful.
Yeah, it totally can be. Thanks for sharing that. Ignore, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, for the first part, I'm going to sort of echo what Jason and Ayush were saying. I really also enjoy that I feel like I'm learning how to become a better like critical thinker in general. I was actually like a couple weeks ago with my brother, we were looking at like CS 70, which is a class a lot of CS kids take like in their first year. And I remember when I first took that class, like how I would look at some problems and I would be like, I have no idea how I would approach it. And now, like, even after having been distanced from that material for like a year and a half, I can look at it and I trust in my own abilities to at least be able to get started, or like think through how I could get through the problem. And so I think that's just really awesome that we're able to go to an institution that's not really like, it's teaching us content, but it's also like teaching us a way of thinking that will be beneficial, like no matter what career you end up going into. And then, more specifically, I think in LNS also, I really enjoy that there's like such a diverse like availability of like course options. Like just in CS, in the upper division classes, like you can go into computer security, you can go into computer vision, you can learn more about compilers, you can learn more about like literally anything you could want to like know more about, there's already a class for. And then even outside of CS, there's so many like interesting things that you're able to take because it sort of fits into your requirements. So that's probably what I enjoyed the most. And then what's most challenging, I would again agree with what's been said so far, is that like it can get very, very stressful, and it's very easy to start comparing yourself to other people and being like, oh, well, they're doing like 6 clubs and an internship, so like, why can't I? But you just have to remember everyone's different, everyone's journey is different. And it's definitely like a process, and you have to like learn to sort of manage yourself and balance yourself. But I think like with time, that's also something important to know in life, is how to sort of balance those things out.
Yeah, that's really wise. I definitely was not thinking like that when I was a freshman. I guess the thing that I enjoy most about studying at Berkeley is how much there is to take, like how many courses there are to take. I was all over the place. Honestly, I've been all over the place all my 5 years. And I remember my freshman year, I was like, I want to take every single class that sounds kind of interesting. And I remember I took a freshman seminar, like a vision science seminar, because there's a school of optometry that we have, which I had no idea there was like optometry schools before going to Berkeley. And in that seminar, they literally took like a picture, like a super HD picture of my eye. And I was like, this is so cool. I'm learning all about my eyes. And I was just taking really random classes, which was super exciting, because even though I was taking computer science courses, I was like, well, there's so much here, and there's so many majors, and there's so many interests that I think I might have. So I want to like pursue all of them. And because there's so much to take, especially with all of the decals and other courses that Berkeley offers, there's an endless amount to choose from. I think the part that's most challenging about that is the FOMO that comes from that. Like the fear of missing out is real. I remember when I was taking like all these these cool classes my freshman year, my friends would tell me about the classes they were taking, and I was like, wait, like I want to take that now. And it was just really hard to never feel like satisfied with the fact that you could take everything, because there's just not enough time. And you also have like certain capacities every semester, and you have to, you know, get your major. So it was definitely a learning process of like, what can I do to continue taking classes that I'm kind of interested in, or like small seminars that don't eat away a lot of my time, so I can still focus on my major requirements. And also like, how can I be okay with that, even though I know that I can't take every single course that Berkeley has to offer. So definitely a lot of learning experiences. And I think that concludes our second question. So Gina, if you want to move forward, thank you. Okay, question 3 is, what do you like to do outside of EECS and CS? Do you have time for extracurriculars or work? So we'll go ahead with Ayush.
Yeah, so outside of EECS, I play the drums. So I'm a part of a few bands with a bunch of my friends. We perform here and there at events, which is fun. And an extracurricular that I'm a part of is, it's still EECS related, but I'm part of a CSM, which is stands for Computer Science Mentors, which is basically a teaching organization where we hold sort of tutoring sections for a few of the CS courses. So yeah, and finally, in addition to that, I'm also part of the Thai Student Association. So we host cultural events around campus. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that. Ashley, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so I'm an officer with Eta Kappa Nu, which is the EECS Honor Society at Berkeley. And what I do for them is I make videos. So it's super fun. It's not related to like EECS specifically. So I like put together like funny videos for them, and also informational videos about like what the club does. And it's like so much fun because I like video editing, something I like to do. And also I like to play this, or back when things were in person, I played this casual sport called Jugger, where TLDR, it's kind of like rugby, except only one person on each team can hold the ball, and everyone else gets foam weapons. If you get tapped with a foam weapon, you go down for 5 seconds. It's super fun. So if y'all come on campus and you see people with foam swords, go up to them and say hi. It's super fun.
I always want to know what the name of that was. Before COVID, I'd be like, who is that? Thanks for sharing. Jason, let's hear from you.
So I'm pretty much a gamer. Play like almost every single game: BF5, Warzone, Rust, Valheim, just anything. All the new stuff that's coming out looks really cool. I like to watch movies, and I like to watch people's critiques of movies. I actually like to hear people analyze, you know, a scene by scene, you know, how well the writing was, how well the filmography was and stuff. But besides from that, extracurriculars outside of school, I was in STAC for about a year, which was pretty cool. Space technologies at Cal. And I worked on an experiment there, or like coding up an experiment. But it was pretty difficult to balance, because I was taking 3 technical courses, and then doing a club on top of that. It was pretty tough, but I managed. So, yeah. Oh, and this was during COVID, so about a year of being in STAC online. But before that, when I came in the fall, the school has an RF. I don't know what it's going to be like now, but there's a lot of martial arts. There's karate. There's I think taekwondo and judo. I did judo, and it was pretty good to do after classes, especially after an exam, to, you know, get slammed or slam other people. So it's pretty stress relieving. But, you know, now I don't know, but hopefully all that stuff will be back. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I never got into that, but I took swimming classes. Ignor, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so there is like so much at Berkeley, as you probably already heard. I personally have played soccer my whole life. And so the summer before I started here, I did IM soccer, which was so much fun. I got to meet like so many people. We had like a whole team of just transfers. So it was really nice to like get to meet other people like similar to me, and just like make some friends before the school year officially started. And that was super easy to balance because it was like we pretty much just played games and it was like you just come whenever you can. So that was really fun. And then I also like have always had a passion for teaching. I just like love doing it. So I also did CSM my first year. I really enjoyed that. And then this past year, I've been on core staff, which is another really great like opportunity at Berkeley is like you can literally help teach the classes that you took afterwards. And so I really, really enjoyed 61A, which is like our intro to CS class. And so I've been teaching that the past 2 years and I absolutely love it because it's so fun to see people who like, some people don't even want to take CS and they take the class just for fun. And then at the end of it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I want to major in this. And that is just like, it warms my heart and I love that. So yeah, I do a lot with teaching there. And then I'm also part of this other club called Camp Alima, which again is like all around education. We put on a summer STEM camp for young girls in Morocco to sort of expose them to some fields that they may not be exposed to because a lot of them come international to study. And so those are sort of the main things that I did, but there's like so many things that are available. There's so many like different clubs, coding or otherwise. And like any sort of interest that you may have, like I would say there's a 90% chance there's already a club where you could like meet other people just like you.
That's so real. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so before COVID, I loved finding random things to do. I would just like go to SF or go to Oakland. I got really into salsa and bachata dancing, so I would just kind of find random places to do that, and that was really fun. I also felt like I made time for extracurriculars, so I've been involved with HES, or the Hispanic Engineers and Scientists Club, which has actually been a really big part of my time and like journey at Cal, where I've found a great community, and CS Scholars. I will link all of these different orgs that I talk about, and Berkeley Innovation, which is a design consultancy club. I feel like a lot of my interests lie outside of computer science or like technology. So I was also a part of FAST, or Fashion and Student Trends, because I really like fashion. And so I'd be a part of this fashion show that's student run. And it was really cool because it would be like really awesome to just see all of these student designers create clothes, and then I could just like strut in them. And that was really fun. I also wanted to touch on the fact that we also ask in this question of whether or not we had time for work. So as someone who's low income and someone who honestly just like stressed out and continues to stress out about like finances, I don't think I really had a choice not to work, which I think is important to like mention, just because you know, like sometimes we have other responsibilities, we want to help our family, or we just like need to be able to pay for our own expenses. And so for me, I tried to be strategic about getting a work study job that could relate to computer science. So I got like a web developer job for the School of Public Health, and that was a great opportunity for me to, you know, make money and also learn and kind of get a better understanding for what computer science could look like in other spaces outside of just academia. So that's my answer for question 3. And I think now we'll move on to the next one. Oh, thanks for also sharing the link for CS Scholars. Okay, question 4 is, what resources have you found most helpful? So let's start with you, Ayush.
Yeah, for studying, this is going to sound like a plug, but it's not. CSM was actually really helpful for me. Part of the reason why I'm a part of the club now is because it was so helpful to me as a student. So it's basically if you need extra help or just more practice, more worksheets, more mentors to help you go through the content, CSM is a great way to do that. And definitely in terms of getting academic help, go to office hours. That's usually the time when professors and teaching assistants will be there for you to answer any of the questions you have. And it's the best way to meet people, get to know the people who are running the course. And it's a great way to get your questions answered pretty much very efficiently. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Ashley, let's hear from you.
Yeah. So in the summer before I came to Berkeley, so like after high school, but like before college, I did the Berkeley pre-engineering program, which it's a 3-week program in the summer before you start in the fall. And what it does is it helps to like teach you some of Berkeley's kind of course curriculum to kind of help you like get a head start, and also teaches you career skills like networking, how to do interviews and things like that. And so I found this program like really, really helpful. It's especially a great program for if you're first gen or if you're from an underrepresented background in engineering, or if you're low income. So I met like this really amazing cohort of people through this program, and I highly encourage, if for all of you who were admitted to EECS, to apply to this program, especially if you're from like an underrepresented background in engineering. Like I literally still work with these people. Like I'm working on a group project with someone who I met through prep, and it's a really amazing program.
That's really awesome to hear. I'm glad it was so positive. Jason, let's hear about what you have to say about resources that are helpful.
So there, excuse me, there's a lot, to be honest. There's so many resources, and I think I was helped by everything. Like when it comes to academics, office hours, talking to TAs, talking to professors, just hearing sometimes, you know, if you come here, you should definitely talk to professors because they have some very interesting insights. Like, like I remember going to office hours for CS70 and talking to Sahai and just hearing him, talk about like how to solve proofs and things like that was just, very insightful. Like just to hear how, a person like him, who's definitely like risen up in academics, is like, how does he approach these things? From making lots of friends, people you can work with on assignments. You definitely don't want to be alone when working on something. Like sometimes, yeah, you gotta, do it yourself, but like to have like a group of people that, you can rely on and work together on is definitely like super helpful and can, save you in a pinch. When it comes to your career, which is going to hit you pretty fast because I think like the career fair is like in the fall pretty soon. I think it's in like September or something like that. So like going to the career center, making an appointment, talking to a counselor, I know was super helpful to me. Just combing through my resume and telling me like, oh, you shouldn't put this or blah, blah, blah. Or like talking to other advisors at the, I think it's the EECS, the Engineering Student Services. It's like this big building right outside of Echeverry, I think. No, not Echeverry. It's right outside of, I can't remember the names. It's near Corey. But, and talking to the advisors there, you can make appointments with them and they can give you like advice, like how do I talk to a recruiter? What's an elevator pitch? What's the best way to have an elevator pitch? Like, how do I like make an impression of myself? Because it matters, because it's like all this stuff's going to hit you pretty fast and you're not going to have a lot of time to prepare. So like the best way is to like hear what other people have to say. So, and also like sometimes, if you're super stressed out and like, this happens to like everybody, I'm pretty sure, but like, like sometimes you're just like down and out or like the imposter syndrome, is getting you down or whatever, like going to Caps and talking to them and, hearing what they have to say and, and like really taking in their advice on how to like deal with these things. Cause yeah, it's going to be pretty intense. So like, taking advantage of each one of these resources and knowing that you're worth those resources, you're worth people's time, is definitely helpful. So everything was helpful to me, from Caps to the Career Center to professors and office hours and other students, all that stuff. Everything's a resource.
Yeah, thank you for sharing so much. We'll be sure to link as much as we can from what we share, just because, like you mentioned, there are so many resources here. Iknur, would you like to share?
Yeah, personally, I found, again, like just sort of to say what everyone has already said, office hours is like so helpful. Some of like my closest friends now I met in office hours, and the struggle that we faced together made us super close. So it's a great way to make friends. It's a great way to learn. And unfortunately, I learned this the hard way, but the same homework that you would spend 10 hours on alone, you can finish in like 4 or 5 hours if you just go to office hours and ask for help. I think a lot of us, when we come to Berkeley, it's sort of like a mental thing. Again, like Jason was saying with the imposter syndrome, like you feel like, oh my God, if I ask this question, they're going to think I'm so stupid. But it's like, you know what, like everyone starts somewhere. And first of all, like they probably won't think that because the whole point they're there is to help you. And second of all, like if you don't get that question answered now, then you're going to get it on the exam and you won't be able to answer it then anyway. So that's like, I just kind of had to get through that mental hurdle. But after that, office hours was like so helpful for me. A lot of CS classes have things like project parties where it's just like a bunch of TAs in a room and a bunch of students. So definitely like go to those, or if there's like homework parties, it's just being around other people and talking about problems makes them easier to solve. And then obviously the TAs that are there to help you can like sort of guide you through the problems if you're having some difficulty as well. And then career wise, I would say Handshake, which is like you can make a profile on this like website. It's like a career searching website. That was super helpful because like as I was searching for a job, a lot of people would just like reach out to me on there after I made a profile, and they would just say like, you know, this is like my company, like we have some openings. And it really helped me like target my search so that I was applying to places that actually like matched my qualifications. And then it also gave me like someone at the company that I could like talk to and make sure that like what they're looking for aligns with what I want. And so again, it just helped make the job search a little bit more targeted, as opposed to just like going on LinkedIn and applying to like hundreds and hundreds at once.
Yeah, I totally feel that. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, like Jason mentioned, there are so many resources, and honestly, I found them all helpful. I will say the part that was hard is like finding the resources. So I'm just going to talk about a few, and I kind of split them up in my head like in different ways. So the first is community. Being Latina in the computer science major was definitely like a shock, just because I had no idea how few Latinx people there were pursuing computer science. And so having a community where I could talk to other people who had similar backgrounds to me just really helped me navigate Berkeley, because I just didn't know how to. There's also a similar club called BESA, or the Black Engineering and Science Student Association, that is similar in like providing community. And I think it's just really important because yeah, community is just the way that you get through a population in a school as large as Berkeley. So that's like one way I think about it. The second, and Jason mentioned this, so shout out to you, is CAPS, psychological, it's counseling and psychological services. Like I didn't know what therapy was before going to Berkeley. I didn't even know that we got therapy, or like that was a resource available to us, until I became a student. And even then it took me 2 years to learn about it. And so this is something else, just because like social and emotional regulation are really important during your time here. So I also really recommend that. And then thirdly, academic. So Ayush talked about CS Mentors. I definitely recommend that. I also have been a part of CS Scholars, which is a separate program. And then the SLC, or the Student Learning Center. Those are 3 different organizations, or just resources on campus to help you with your academics, certain classes, whether they're math or STEM related, just in general. So yeah, there's many resources on campus, and finding them I think is definitely the hardest part. So we are here to share what we know. So yeah, that concludes the end of question 4. So we'll move on to the 5th question, which is a hefty one. How competitive are classes at Berkeley and in CS/EECS compared to high school and or community college? So let's be honest. Let's share. Ayush, how about you go first?
Yeah, so it's definitely competitive, right? It has to be, because the best of the best are here learning all together. But the thing to remember is you're one of the best of the best. So if you weren't smart enough, you wouldn't be here, right? So you're definitely here for a reason. And classes are competitive, and everyone's trying to basically, do the best they can. So my advice on that sense is basically to just focus on yourself as much as possible. Like you do you. You aim for the grades that you want to get. Aim for the clubs that you find interesting, target the research or the internships that you want to do. Don't like try to drain out the noise around you, because there will be a lot of noise because it's such a big school. There's so much going on, right? So just, I guess, define your path for yourself. And I guess that's the best way to get around the competitive nature of Berkeley, because there's so many people here. There's bound to be competition in everything. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Ashley, let's hear from you.
I pretty much want to echo what Age said. Something I learned coming to Berkeley from high school is to learn to focus on myself and my own improvement, because something I learned is like, there will always be someone who is smarter than you, who like does more than you or whatever. Like there's always going to be that person. And so there's no point in like looking at that person and being like, oh my God, like I'm not good enough or anything. Just focus on yourself. I know this is really hard, but like got to focus on yourself and your own improvement, and that's all that matters. And something I also want to address is, so there's always this myth kind of floating around, including when I was in high school, like I believed it too. There's a myth that like at Berkeley, everyone's like super like competitive against each other. Like everyone tries to like sabotage each other because the classes are curved and like that's the only way you get an A or something like that. And that's just not true at all. Like like most of the lower JFCS classes are in fact not curved. Like the grade that you get is what you get, no matter how everybody else does. And the class that is curved is kind of curved in your favor, because what ends up happening is that sometimes like, you know, the average grade on like an exam is like 50%, and that's already a B. So better for that to be a B than to like not curve it and have it be an F, right? So I find that like most people like work together in classes. Like there's none of this like sabotaging that happens. Everyone's like glad to help each other out, because you learn a lot more and you do a lot better when you like talk to other people and work with other people and learn from each other. So just wanted to debunk that myth out there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience. Jason, let's hear from you.
The difference was definitely huge. And going from community college to classes at Berkeley, and I was CS, so, you know, the whole declaring thing was just like huge, just like piano hanging over my head. And it was just like constantly on my mind until I declared. And, you know, it's true what Ashley is saying. I totally agree. It's not what people say it is, or it's cutthroat and people will delete your Google Docs and, you know, spill water on your notes or something like that. You know, like, you know, there's no one, people aren't trying to get each other. The grading is absolute, so you don't have to worry about curves till like upper division courses. There are some people who, you know, can be a little selfish at times, you know, like you ask for help and then they're just like, buzz off, you know, like, you know, I don't have time for you. So like, but you know, that you shouldn't let that kind of like make an impression upon you that everybody's like that. Everyone's trying to get good grades. Everyone, you know, there's a lot of people trying to declare, you know, so like, yeah, so it is a very collaborative environment, but yes, there's still competition. And that was like, probably like one of the most stressful things for me. Like I remember, you know, cause like, you know, coming, you know, like in my shoes, you know, not declaring CS is like a pretty big deal. Cause like, you know, I'm like 30 years old and like, you know, like this is going to be like, this is going to set the tone for like the rest of my life, you know, like, am I going to, you know, be able to get a job? And, you know, I start thinking about all these things, or like everyone, I mean, everyone's going to be unique, but like when that stress hits you, you know, you start like having all these negative thoughts and, you know, and a part of it, like, it's like, not only do you have to combat the academics, but you also have to like fight against yourself, because like you can sometimes find yourself spiraling down and like things like that, you know, they just don't really help you. I remember like sometimes I would like wake up in the middle of the night and just like my first semester, I just wake up in the middle of the night and be like, is this a dream? Is this a nightmare? Like, oh my God, like it just took my first CS 61A exam and I just like, I did like average, you know, and I'm like, oh crap, am I, you know, am I going to be able to declare? And like, it's just, you know, you go through that a lot, but, you know, keep in mind that like there is light at the end of the tunnel, and, you know, learn from your mistakes. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, it's okay if you bomb your exam, just like, you know, care about yourself, you know, like don't beat yourself. Like I beat myself up. I'm just like, man, I'm so dumb. Like what, how could I miss that? Like, oh, I should have studied more. And, you know, maybe I shouldn't have watched that, you know, that movie on Netflix. I should have studied or something like that. And, you know, like, even though it was just like one single movie, you took like 2 hours off in a day and you spent like the entire day working, you feel so guilty, you know, but like, you got to realize like, you know, you got to be able to have some like stress management and, you know, care about yourself and be okay with making mistakes as long as you learn from those mistakes. Because like, I feel like the biggest lesson I learned from dealing with the competitiveness at Berkeley is like, if you make a mistake, sometimes like you start thinking like, oh, you know, I'm not gonna, you start thinking all these negative thoughts, but like you should really be accepting of the mistake and see like why you did it and just improve upon it, you know, and have like this growth mindset, instead of like going down this like negative spiral, which can happen, you know, like halfway through the semester, like everybody's burned out, you know, like especially like the lower div courses, because it's just so much work. 61A, 16A, 16B, 61C, like all those courses are just immense. So I'd say it's huge, and there's definitely a lot to deal with my first semester. It does get better, but you know, that's why like these resources help a lot, because then you start, you know, growing as a person, you know what I mean? Like these are just kind of growing pains, and you know, eventually you're going to mature and you know, be better. So that's my.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Okay, I blinked for a little bit. We did Ayush, we did Ashley, we just did Jason. Okay, Ignore, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so I don't want to just keep saying what everyone else said, but I would say I came from a very like competitive high school where like the atmosphere was pretty similar to Berkeley, where people are always like comparing themselves to each other and like coming to school and being like, oh, like I got this on my SAT, what did you get? And I think like that sort of mindset in community college, I sort of had like a year away from that, and then coming back to Berkeley, like after having the perspective of what life is like without constantly having that, it made me realize that a lot of the competition is kind of like internal, or like you create it yourself in your head, you know, like if someone tells you something, it's your choice if you're going to decide to like let it affect you, or just kind of be like, you know what, I am happy for you, our lives are very different, our trajectories are very different, and like let's just end it at that. And so I think like once I was able to sort of again like get past that mental barrier of like it's me versus you, or it's me versus all of them, like, and instead be like, you know what, like good for you, good for me, like let's just leave it at that. That was very helpful for me to just kind of be like, I put in my best effort on this test, and like that's all I'm going to leave it at. And then the other thing that I would say, just to prepare yourselves, for me, like coming to Berkeley, like getting like a 50% on an exam is like normal, like, you know, like that's the average, or like sometimes that's even above average. So when I first came here, for some reason, like that didn't cross my mind. I was still looking at raw scores, and I was terrified. Like Gradescope is where we get our exam scores. And I remember the first 61A score, like I saw it and I literally was like, oh my gosh, I did so poorly. But then like you realize like, okay, this is like the average in the class, and so on. So like just keep in mind that raw scores don't really translate however they did in like high school.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I've been listening to all of you, and I'm like, I have so many thoughts to share. And I'm going to try my best to kind of think about how to answer this question, which is like, I don't think it's necessarily competition. I think it's high pressure that leads to competition. So in high school, I think the mindset for me was like, I need to be valedictorian to get into a good college. And so that caused competition because it was a high stress situation. And in college, it quickly became, I need to get into the CS major because I need to get into this major and I need to have a job and I need things to work out. And so then that high pressure led to competition. But the thing that was really interesting that was completely different from high school was how many people I felt like I was up against. And so it was also interesting to learn that the variety of student experiences and student backgrounds in terms of like where we were before Berkeley was crazy to me. And I was like, this is so inequitable. Like I didn't go to this affluent school or this like really privileged school. And so that created this competition where it was like, oh, like I know I need to do well. And also like I recognize that I went to a public school where I probably didn't learn math or like learn linear algebra, which I somehow now need for my CS classes. And so the competition, I think, is definitely fostered through the way that there is the GPA cutoff to get into the CS major, and the culture of Berkeley being like, we need to do so much, and like we're always high pressure, and there's always so much more to do and so many more opportunities to take advantage of, that the sense of community and the sense of like togetherness, like we're all just trying to get through it, is really hard to continue when there's also the barriers that are systemic, like, well, we can only accept a certain number of students and those students have to have higher than a 3.3 GPA. And so the transition between like high school and college was crazy for me because I was like, oh, this is what it means to like have systems that are inequitable play a role in my ability to pursue what I have an interest in. And while I don't think, like Jason mentioned, people are spilling water on your homework so that you can't submit it, I do think that competition is real at Berkeley because of the fact that we've been forced, or like, yeah, I guess forced is the best word to use, to really just think about ourselves and to really like make sure that we make it through. And once we do, then like we can start to be together and build community. So I would say that making sure you recognize that when you walk in is going to be important, because I think there are so many people that want to help each other. And when I go to office hours before COVID, especially, like people would just be like, hey, you want to work on this question together? And I wouldn't know them. And that felt so awesome. And at the same time, like it was hard when, you know, people wouldn't really share their scores because they'd be like, well, I need to do well. And like, I need to be on the right end of this bell curve for our midterm exam because I need to get into the major. And so it's more a sense of intense emotions and high pressure that yield competition, at least in my experience. We said we were going to be honest for question 5, so we shared that. And this is question 6, our last one, which is, what are your plans after graduation? And did your original plans change after starting at Berkeley? So let's hear from you, Ayush.
Yeah, so I came into Berkeley thinking that I would finish an undergrad in 4 years and go into industry right away. But then in one of my classes, we had a guest lecturer, and basically he was saying that he made a point that kind of like stuck with me for a while, and it kind of changed my trajectory a little bit. He basically said that you spend around like 16 years in school, and then the rest of your life, 40, 50 years, whatever it is dedicated to making money. So why don't you take a few years off, or a few years off out of that 40, 50 year span that you have dedicated to making money, to studying a little bit more, if of course you're in the position to do so. So 1 or 2, 3, maybe 4 years out, adding on to your educational career won't take too much away. You'll always have time to make money, right? But you may not want to, after getting a stable job, come back to education. So that kind of inspired me to maybe consider going to grad school before jumping into industry, because essentially what he was saying was there's no rush, right? And if you're enjoying content and want to go deeper in a particular area, and you have an area that you're interested in, why not just spend a few more years exploring that area a little more? Yeah.
Interesting to hear that perspective. Thanks for sharing. Ashley, let's hear from you.
So when I was first starting out at Berkeley, my plan was like, all right, I'm going to finish my undergrad in 4 years, and I'm going to go work as a full-time software engineer in like whatever company. And I was pretty set on that. I went to career fairs and all that. And then I found at Berkeley that you can actually do research and go more into like the theoretical side of things, and like kind of work in producing new ideas and like producing knowledge rather than like coding up a specific product. And so I looked more into research, and then I found that like research can lead you to earning your master's or earning your PhD. And so I really had to sit down and think carefully, like, do I actually want to go straight into full-time work, or do I actually maybe want to take some time to do a master's? And so what I did was I joined a research group, and I decided to like stick with it and really give it a shot and see if this is something that I want to do. And I did it, and I realized that research was not quite for me. So I went back to my original plan of like, you know, go to full-time software engineering work after graduating undergrad. But I think the point is that even though my plans eventually ended up being pretty similar to what they were before I started Berkeley, it's important to keep an open mind and open yourself to that possibility that you might actually do something different, and to really, really give it your full shot and make a really informed decision as to what you want to do, instead of like shooting down an idea right away. Like, oh, I don't want to do research. Okay, I'm not even going to try. Like, put yourself into it, like really put your energy and see if like this is actually, you might actually like it, and go into it with an open mind. And your plans might change, and that's totally okay too. So it's totally fine to like change your mind and explore different things. That's really important.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, I totally agree with that statement and just what you shared. So thank you. Jason, let's hear what you have to say.
So my plans didn't change. I just planned on getting my bachelor's and going into work because, you know, my age and family, you know, things like that. I just, you know, I have to go to work. Um, but if I had gone to school a lot younger, I would have definitely loved to do a PhD. It's a lot of work. 7 years of your life is a lot, and it's really stressful, and you don't make a lot of money. Although you can do some pretty good internships as a PhD student. But yeah, I mean, Berkeley's just has amazing research. Like, I mean, some of the latest technology in computers, you know, like the latest, like for example, AMD's Ryzen processors use FinFETs, and where were FinFETs discovered? Here at Berkeley. You know, and there's a lot of like computer architecture going on. You know, like one of the founders of RISC, which you'll learn about in 61C, teaches here. I can't remember his name. I know the other guy, Hennessy, and then the other guy. But yeah, I would have loved to do research. But yeah, so unfortunately, you know, it kind of breaks my heart because I would really love to do that, but you know, I got responsibilities and I gotta, yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your truth. Ignore, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so mine did change. When I was first coming to Berkeley, I was very set on graduating and going to Google. But then while I was here, I've, you know, gotten to meet a lot of people. I've gotten exposed to sort of startup culture. And I'm also 20 because I did like the 1 year transfer. And so similar to how Ayush was saying, I kind of like talked to a few people and I realized like I have my whole life ahead of me. And like if I get into like one of these companies or I start working there, like I don't have like I won't be able to like make myself leave and try other things because like once you're there, you know, it's like a stable income, it's a good job, like you have no reason to leave. And I feel like especially when you're like younger, like now is the time to kind of explore and like really figure out what is it that you enjoy doing. And so I am now like I still love teaching, so I took a part-time online teaching job just for like CS, just for like fun on the side. And then like my main like job is I'm currently working with a startup and I really enjoy that, and I love like getting to do like my software work and then also kind of learning like how a company works and how do you lead a company, how do you like work as a product manager. There's a lot more like flexibility to like explore different roles. And so like the money is obviously a little bit less when you're working for a startup, but again, like I'm just thinking in my mind, like right now, like given my age, I have so much time to do other things. And so I think it's important to sort of explore all the options before settling down on like what it is that you want to do.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, my take is similar and different. So it's funny because when I got into Berkeley and when I did summer bridge, everyone was talking about computer science and I was like, I don't know, like my brother did it, but I don't even know what that actually means. But everyone started talking about how in 4 years you could be making 6 figures, and I was like, what is 6 figures? And then when I learned, I was like, oh, like that's a lot of money. I want that for myself. And so somehow I just decided that I was going to have this new grad, like in 4-year job in software engineering. I was just like, yeah, it'll happen since it seems to be happening for everyone else. And then the next like 4 or 5 years were just a complete mess. And I feel like I went in so many directions. But yeah, it's kind of crazy how I was just like, yes, like it'll work out. I'll have a new grad job when I was a freshman. And then after being there for less than a year, I was like, oh, I have no idea actually what I'm going to do like when I graduate. And so I felt like every semester I was having to think of the plan and think of what my life after college would be. I also thought I was going to graduate in 4 years. Turns out that wasn't true. I stayed an extra year, and it's probably the best thing I've been able to do for myself. And the reason why I share that is because I got into my undergraduate. I chose Berkeley on a whim. Like there's no better way to describe it. I didn't know how to research what undergrad program worked for me. You know, I heard that Berkeley was a great school. It was 2 hours away from home. My brother went there, and I was like, check, check, check. That seems like a good, reasonable thing to look for. And at the end of the day, I think I could have done so much more research to look into undergraduate programs. And so when it comes to grad school, I definitely didn't want to redo the same thing I did for my undergrad. And I was like, okay, I can go into industry, figure out what I actually like and what I want to pursue or like dive deep into, and then go to grad school for that, rather than just doing grad school because other students seem to be doing grad school after they finish their undergrad. So I feel like I'm trying to pave my own path and figure out my own narrative, and not just like hear and decide based off of what other narratives seem to be put onto me. Which is kind of funny because when I was a freshman, I was just like I mentioned, I'll have a new grad job, software engineering, even without knowing what computer science was. I just wanted the 6-figure salary, let's be honest. And now it is crazy, but I am able to say I literally have a job offer with Apple, or like a job I accepted. And there is so much more to that than just this simple statement I'm making, but it is cool to know that it worked out in, you know, the way that my freshman self thought she would. And yeah, and I think like I want to go to grad school, but right now I definitely want to give myself the opportunity to just figure out what there is outside of academia, so then I can actually go into it with like the right mindset and mentality, rather than being like, let's just go to it because other people seem to be going to it and I'm 22 and life is fleeting. So, you know, figure out your own narrative and make sure that it's what you want and not just what you think you need to do. That is the end of our 6 questions. So we'd love to hear from all of you if there's any question that you have.
Great. Thank you so much to our panelists and Mariella for being our moderator today. So we are a little over time here, and I want to be mindful of our panelists and their time. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out to our department and send them over. We have our CS advising team and our EECS advising team. So advisors will be able to help you. I got 2 questions in here about course combinations. So definitely connect with an advisor, and they'll be able to help you on like how to plan your schedule and how to have a well-balanced schedule. So again, thank you all for attending this session today. And I want to thank our panelists so much for sharing your perspective. And yeah, I think we had a diverse group here. So it was very awesome to hear different perspectives. Thank you so much, and go Bears.